Hello, Professor Lestrape. This is Austin, and I am back with Theory Competency 2, and I'm doing this one over face negotiation theory. So the face negotiation theory is based on an underlying assumption that regardless of culture, people are all concerned with saving face. The theory attempts to explain the reasons behind the different ways people from different cultures handle conflict. According to face negotiation theory, this occurs because people of different cultures have different priorities when it comes to saving face, and they have different ideas of what constitutes saving face. If you are wondering, face is the projected image of yourself in a relational situation. The face is an identity, the persona we keep up in society, and our public image. Factors of negotiating face are concern over self-face and others' face. It is important to understand the significance of face for an individual and how important it is to maintain a face, which in turn will reflect onto others. People from a collectivist culture usually avoid the conflict, while more individualistic people dominate the conflict as to maintain an independent face in society. Another factor in negotiating face is status in society, which generates power. In collectivistic culture, people are born into certain status quo, and their individuality is not as important. In a more individualistic society, people earn their power to live in the society. The theory places a lot of emphasis on different viewpoints of members of collectivist and individualistic cultures, because collectivist cultures emphasize the collective members seek to avoid anything that might damage the group. They tend to avoid conflict, and they often allow others to save face when a conflict is unavoidable. Additionally, saving the group's face is viewed as primary, with individual face saving taking a back seat. Individualistic cultures, on the other hand, emphasize the individual, and members who feel the need to make others lose face in order to save their own often believe that avoiding conflict leads to losing face. In these cultures, the face of the group may be a secondary consideration or may not be a consideration at all. A little bit of background information. Face negotiation theory was created by Stella Ting Toomey in 1985 due to Ting Toomey being frustrated with the interpersonal conflict communication theories that were popular in the 80s. At the time, theories emphasized the value of self-disclosure and conflict confrontation. Strategies used by collectivist cultures were being ignored or viewed as undesirable or ineffective. These directives did little to improve communication and conflict resolution between cultures with different styles, which led Ting Toomey to begin working on providing a more complete theory. So the theoretical orientation, the face negotiation theory is almost right in the middle of the rhetorical and empirical continuum. Because it is concerned with conflict resolution or how people deal with conflicts, you can observe the different ways people do this, whether it be verbally, non-verbally, or them doing nothing at all. This also means it is also in between qualitative and quantitative in approach. The reason being is that you could see the face negotiation theory in action in your everyday life. Conflict resolution happens all the time naturally, but it's also something that you can create an experiment for to test how people will save face. This is why the face negotiation theory lands in the middle of both instances. The theoretical tradition is a mix of socio-psychological tradition, due to the fact that there are communication truths concerning this theory that have been discovered by observation of relational communication or communication in general. Based on these observations, you can predict how people of a certain culture will save face when dealing with conflict resolution. It also has rhetorical tradition. So the face negotiation theory does have instances where the rhetorical tradition can come into play, but to me, it is only involving individualistic cultures. And this is because people from this culture may be willing to use all available means of persuasion to convince those within conflict resolution of their points, or to ensure the final decision works in their favor, because that is all they are worried about, is themselves. And then also socio-cultural tradition. Because the culture we are from influences how we save face, in individualistic cultures, people learn that you should put yourself first in most situations. In collectivist cultures, people put the group first, and saving their own face is put on the back burner. The language these people are taught growing up heavily influences how they deal with certain situations, and what somebody from one culture may say in a conflict resolution conversation doesn't mean that person from another culture will say the exact same thing. Also, finally, the ethical tradition. This is a tradition that can be seen in many of the theories discussed in the book. It especially pertains to the face negotiation theory because individualistic and collectivist cultures have a different code of ethics. Not that the ethics are completely different, but the way that they are taught, emphasized, and carried out is different. This causes people from each culture to deal with conflict resolution differently for the most part. Other aspects of the theory, the 5 conflict styles reflect how people from certain cultures tend to react to conflict resolution. These styles aren't only set to one culture, they can be intermingled, but for the most part, individualistic and collectivistic cultures tend to respond in these certain ways. So number 1 is domination, an individualistic approach to make decisions by dominating or controlling. Avoiding is a collectivist approach of staying away from the conflict. Obliging is a collectivist approach of kind of giving up and just giving in to what the other person is asking. Compromising is an individualistic approach to negotiate to come to a solution. Integrating is an individualistic approach to work together to reach a solution. And so those are those 5. And a few critiques. Overall, I did enjoy learning about this theory and looking back on instances in my life where I've had conversation or worked with people from a collectivist culture. I can easily spot the differences between them and myself. And while I strive to be more collectivist, I was very influenced by my individualistic culture, making it harder to change my ways. After learning about this theory, I will continue to strive to face more for the group, to save face more for the group than just myself. While I don't feel like I am a selfish person in the slightest, I know there are aspects of my life that could use improvement, especially concerning conflict resolution. I believe anybody looking to better their understanding of how to interact with individuals from a different culture should read about this theory. It can aid in learning how collectivist people think and react, and in my opinion, it seems they react in a more peaceful way. While I know Team Toomey and other theorists will continue researching this topic, I believe that they are very much so onto something, and the more detail and depth that we come up with for this theory, the better we as individuals will be able to learn how to understand those from other cultures, which is important when trying to make this world a better place. Thank you.